The night arrives in New Orleans the way music does, not all at once but in layers, each one settling into the spaces between heartbeats. You stand at the edge of the levee as darkness spreads across the Mississippi, watching the great river move with the patience of something that has always been here, will always be here. The water flows dark as molasses, catching fragments of light from the ferry that crosses between shores, its windows glowing like fireflies suspended over the current. Beneath your feet, the levee stones still hold a trace of the day's warmth, their surfaces worn smooth by countless others who have stood here, watching this same river carry away the sun. The stones feel ancient through the soles of your shoes, compressed earth that has held back water for generations, creating this boundary where you can stand between the city and its river, belonging to both. The air touches your skin with a warmth that feels almost alive, thick with moisture that carries the scent of the river itself, mud and green growth, history and renewal mixed together. Beneath this, other fragrances drift through, the sweetness of magnolia blooming somewhere in the shadows, the rich, roasted depth of chicory coffee escaping from a cafe that refuses to close its doors to the night. These scents layer upon each other, creating something that belongs only to this place, this moment where water meets land, where day surrenders to evening. A steamboat passes, its paddle wheel turning with a rhythm that seems to match your own breathing. The boat's lights paint brief golden paths across the water's surface before the river swallows them again, returning to its dark, endless flow. You can hear the wheel churning, a soft, repetitive splash that becomes a kind of lullaby, ancient and soothing. The sound mingles with the distant horn of the boat, a low note that rolls across the water and up the banks, vibrating through the soles of your feet where you stand on the worn grass of the levee. Behind you, the city breathes. Not the harsh breath of hurried places, but something deeper, more considered. A door opens somewhere along the waterfront, and for a moment, laughter spills out, bright and warm, like coins scattered across cobblestones. Then the door closes, and the laughter becomes part of the night's texture, woven into the larger quiet that isn't really quiet at all. From somewhere deeper in the city, perhaps from a courtyard or a corner where musicians gather, comes the sound of a trumpet. Not a full song, not yet. Just 3 notes, patient and exploratory, as if the player is greeting the darkness, asking it what kind of music it wants to hear tonight. The notes float across the space between buildings and trees, finding their way to where you stand. They hang in the humid air for a moment, before dissolving, leaving only the suggestion of melody, a promise of what the night might hold. You find yourself holding that silence, letting it settle into your bones, the way the warmth of the stones beneath you seeps upward. Your breath slows, matching itself to some rhythm that exists between the river's flow and the city's pulse. The Mississippi continues its journey, unhurried and vast. You watch as a piece of driftwood turns slowly in an eddy near the bank, caught in a gentle spiral that seems to suspend time itself. Round and round it goes, patient as a meditation, before the current finally claims it again, carrying it downstream toward the Gulf. This is how the river has always moved, taking what comes to it, reshaping it, carrying it forward without urgency, without pause. The city beside it has learned this same rhythm, this same acceptance of what flows through. Your breathing has slowed without your noticing, matching itself to the river's pace. The humid air fills your lungs with its weight of water and warmth, and when you exhale, it feels as though you're adding your own breath to the greater breathing of this place. The boundary between where you end and where New Orleans begins seems less certain now, softened by the darkness and the constant, gentle movement of water against earth. A breeze stirs, barely enough to move the heavy air, but it brings with it new layers of scent. Jasmine from a hidden garden, the faint sweetness of pralines from a candy shop whose windows have long since gone dark, the green smell of banana leaves from someone's backyard. Each scent arrives and departs like a whispered secret, there and then gone, leaving only the impression of its passing. The ferry has reached the far shore now, its lights smaller, more distant. You can see people moving on its deck, tiny figures going about their evening journeys, each carrying their own stories across the water. Soon it will return, making its endless back and forth passage, reliable as breathing, as certain as the tide. Between the ferry's departure and its eventual return, the night deepens around you. The levee grass releases the day's heat in small, invisible sighs that you feel more than hear. Your body settles into this in-between time, neither day nor deep night, but something more gentle, a threshold moment that asks nothing of you but presence. Above, stars begin to emerge through the humid haze, not sharp and clear but soft, as if seen through gauze. They seem closer here, pressed down by the weight of the air, becoming part of the city's illumination rather than distant points of cold light. The moon, 3/4 full, rises over the river, laying down a path of silver that shifts and reforms with each small wave. Never quite the same twice. The light moves like slow jazz across the water's surface, improvising its patterns, finding new ways to catch your eye before dissolving back into darkness. You feel the city settling into itself for the night. Not sleeping, never quite sleeping, but shifting into a different rhythm. The daytime urgency has dissolved into something more fluid, more forgiving. Time moves differently now, measured not in minutes, but in the space between one breath and the next, one wave and the next, one note of music and the silence that follows. The trumpet sounds again, joined now by what might be a clarinet, the two instruments finding each other across the distance, beginning a conversation that will likely continue deep into the night. The music is soft enough that it seems to be coming from inside your own memory, or perhaps from the memory of the city itself. All the nights of music that have come before, folding into this one. As you stand here, the river's patient movement begins to work its way into your muscles, loosening what the day has tightened. The warm stones beneath your feet seem to pulse with stored sunlight, sending gentle waves of heat up through your body. Everything here moves in circles. The river's eddies, the ferry's journey, the music that spirals out from hidden courtyards and returns transformed. The city's lights spread before you like scattered gold coins on dark velvet, each one a small invitation, a gentle pull toward streets you haven't walked yet. Your feet seem to know which direction they want to turn, drawn by some invisible thread toward where the night grows warmer, where iron balconies lean over narrow streets like protective spirits. The Mississippi continues its ancient work behind you, a steady presence that will be here when you return, still moving with the same unhurried grace, still carrying its cargo of light and shadow toward the sea. The wrought iron balconies curve above you like delicate black lace against the deepening sky, each one adorned with cascading ferns that tremble in the evening breeze. You walk slowly beneath them, your footsteps joining the quiet percussion of the French Quarter as it settles into its nighttime rhythm. The air here moves differently than it does near the river. It pools in doorways, gathers in courtyards, carries the mingled perfumes of jasmine and sweet olive through narrow passages between buildings. Gas lamps begin their nightly awakening, one by one, their flames dancing behind glass like captured fireflies. The light they cast is golden and forgiving, softening the edges of weathered brick and peeling paint, turning imperfections into character. Each lamp creates its own small world of warmth, and you move from one pool of light to the next, feeling the gentle alternation of shadow and glow across your face. The cobblestones beneath your feet tell their own story through texture. Some smooth as river stones, worn down by generations of footsteps, others still rough enough to catch the lamplight at angles. They glisten faintly with evening moisture, not quite rain but something more intimate, as if the city itself is breathing out a fine mist. Your steps find their own tempo here, naturally slowing to match the unhurried pace of the quarter after dark. A shutter opens somewhere above, wood sliding against wood with a soft complaint, and for a moment you catch the sound of someone humming, a melody you almost recognize before it fades back into the privacy of an upper room. The buildings lean close here, their shoulders nearly touching across the narrow streets, creating corridors where sound travels in unexpected ways. A conversation in French drifts from a hidden courtyard, the words indistinct, but the tone warm, punctuated by the clink of glasses. You pause at a corner where a chalkboard menu leans against a doorway, its cursive promises written in white. Gumbo thick with okra and andouille. Jambalaya rich with the holy trinity of celery, onion, and bell pepper. Crawfish étouffée, swimming in butter and roux. The scents emerging from within are deep and complex. Bay leaves and thyme, cayenne and paprika. The foundational note of dark roux that anchors every dish like a bass line anchors a song. Your breath deepens involuntarily, drawing in these aromas that speak of long-simmered patience. Music begins to find you. Not all at once, but in fragments, as if the quarter is warming up for the night ahead. From one doorway comes the whisper of a brushed snare, so soft it might be rainfall on a tin roof. From another, a bass line walks through 4 steady beats before starting over. Practicing, perhaps, or simply enjoying the meditation of repetition. A saxophone tests a phrase around the next corner, not performing yet, just breathing through scales with the easy confidence of someone greeting an old friend. The buildings themselves seem designed for this interplay of sound and silence. Arched doorways create natural amplifiers, while thick walls muffle and soften what might otherwise be sharp. When one melody rises, another steps back, creating space in the sonic landscape like dancers taking turns on a floor. A carriage rolls past, its wheels creating their own rhythm against the stones, a steady clip-clop that somehow harmonizes with everything else. The driver nods to you, a gesture so slight it might have been imagined, and the carriage lanterns sway gently with the motion, casting moving shadows that dance briefly across your path before continuing on. The horse's breath steams faintly in the humid air, and you catch the earthy scent of leather and hay, grounding you in this moment where past and present overlap without contradiction. Turning down a quieter street where the tourist flow thins, the quarter reveals a more intimate face. Here, locals sit on stoops with bottles of beer sweating in the warmth, their conversations low and unhurried. A cat stretches across a windowsill, regarding you with amber eyes that catch the lamplight before closing again in satisfaction. Someone waters plants on a balcony, and the drops fall like a brief blessing, catching the light as they descend. The architecture here speaks in layers, French colonial bones dressed in Spanish details, Victorian additions nestled against Creole cottages. Each building wears its years differently. Some stand proud with fresh paint and polished brass, while others lean into their age, their weathered surfaces more beautiful for their honesty. Your fingers trail along a brick wall, feeling the slight dampness, the rough texture interrupted by smooth patches where countless other hands have touched. Through an open doorway, you glimpse a courtyard, where a fountain whispers to itself, its water catching light from strung bulbs overhead. Banana trees lean over the space, their broad leaves creating shadows that shift like slow thoughts. For a moment, you consider stepping inside, drawn by the promise of that hidden peace. But the street calls you forward with its own gentle insistence. The sounds of the quarter continue to layer, a door opening to release a burst of piano notes, quickly muffled as it closes again. The distant sound of applause, warm and appreciative rather than raucous. A woman laughing, the sound like bells shaken gently. These sounds don't intrude, they invite. Each one a small door opening onto another story, another life unfolding in parallel to your own wandering. The air itself has texture here, thick enough to feel against your skin but not oppressive. It carries everything: sound, scent, the day's retained warmth, the river's influence even blocks away. Breathing it in slowly, you feel how it fills your lungs differently than thinner air might, how it asks you to slow down, to move through it rather than past it. As you walk, the quarter transitions from evening to night, from preparation to performance. Musicians arrive at their venues, cases in hand. Servers light candles on outdoor tables. Somewhere, a chef tastes a sauce and nods with satisfaction. The city is settling into its nocturnal rhythm, and you feel yourself being drawn into it, your own internal tempo adjusting to match. The light continues to evolve, less natural now, more crafted. Neon signs begin to glow, their colors muted and warm rather than harsh. Edison bulbs strung between buildings create constellations at eye level. Windows become frames for interior scenes. A couple dining by candlelight. A bartender polishing glasses with practiced meditation. An artist adding final touches to a painting. Each vignette offers its own quiet story, glimpsed but not intruded upon. Finding yourself on a corner where several streets converge, the various streams of music meet and mingle. Jazz from one direction, blues from another, and something Latin-influenced from a third. They shouldn't work together, but somehow they do, creating an accidental symphony that could only happen here, in this moment, never to be repeated exactly the same way again. The cobblestones beneath your feet have dried now, but they hold the memory of moisture in their darker patches. Each step becomes meditation, movement as a way of knowing a place through your body rather than just your eyes. Behind all of this, like a bass note too low to hear but felt in your chest, pulses the sense of history, not as something past, but as something continuously present, woven into every brick, every iron curl, every note played on these streets. The quarter doesn't sleep, but it does dream. And its dreams are made of moments like this. The pause between day and night. The breath between notes. The space where all its cultures meet and merge into something entirely itself. The music follows you as you prepare to move deeper into the city's embrace, growing softer with each step, but never quite disappearing. Ahead, you sense the pull of the river beginning to mix with the quarter's melodies, water calling to you through the warm night air. The streets behind continue their amber glow, but something older waits beyond. Stories that run as deep as the Mississippi itself. The sounds of the quarter shift and settle around you like a familiar blanket, each note and voice finding its place in the night's composition. A trumpet tests 3 patient notes from a distant doorway. The same 3 notes you heard earlier by the river. But now they carry the weight of the streets, the flavor of rue and conversation. The gas lamps continue their steady vigil, and somewhere a door swings open just long enough to let another ribbon of laughter spill onto the stones. You pause once more, letting the sensory tapestry of the quarter settle into your bones. The rough, smooth texture of cobblestones beneath your feet. The golden pools of lamplight warming your skin. The thick air that tastes of magnolia and memory. This is a city that knows how to hold its stories gently, offering them to those who walk slowly enough to listen. As you turn toward the next part of your journey, the wrought iron balconies seem to lean down in farewell, their ferns still trembling in the breeze that carries hints of the river. The music behind you continues its conversation, saxophone answering piano, drums keeping time with the clip-clop of another passing carriage. But ahead, through the narrowing streets, you begin to hear something else. The deep, patient breathing of water against stone. The Mississippi's ancient rhythm calling you forward into older stories, deeper dreams. The city you find yourself in tonight holds time differently than other places. New Orleans doesn't simply remember its past. It lives within it, breathes through it, carries it forward in every gesture and sound. As you walk these streets, you're moving through layers of history that refuse to separate, each one adding its voice to the conversation that has been happening here for 300 years. The French arrived first, reading the curve of the Mississippi like a promise. They laid out their settlement in 1718, following the river's Crescent bend, creating what would become the Vieux Carré. Their vision was practical, a trading post between the river and Lake Pontchartrain. But something about this place invited more than commerce. The land itself seemed to suggest celebration, as if the soil remembered ceremonies older than any European map. You can still feel their presence in the architecture around you. These buildings, with their galleries and courtyards, were designed for air to move through, for shade to gather, for conversations to drift from room to room. The French understood that in this climate, walls should breathe, and spaces should flow into one another. You pause beneath a gallery, letting the humid night air settle on your skin like silk. It carries the faint sweetness of night-blooming jasmine, a scent that has perfumed these streets for centuries. When fire swept through the city in 1788, and again in 1794, it was the Spanish who rebuilt what the flames had taken. Their influence spreads above you now in the wrought iron that laces every balcony, delicate as Spanish moss, but strong enough to last centuries. You reach out to touch the cool metal of a nearby railing, feeling the intricate curves beneath your fingertips. They brought their own sense of beauty. Metalwork that catches shadows and light equally, tiles that cool the air, courtyards that turn inward toward fountains and shade. Under Spanish rule, the city learned to rise from ash, to rebuild itself more beautifully than before. The Spanish added their own rhythms to the city's growing symphony. The click of heels on tile, the splash of courtyard fountains, the rustle of palm fronds in hidden gardens. But the deepest rhythm of New Orleans came from Africa, carried in the memories of enslaved people who refused to let an ocean steal their songs. On Sundays, they gathered in Congo Square, and there something extraordinary happened. Drums that had been silenced on plantations found their voices again. Rhythms that had travelled from Senegal, from Benin, from the Congo itself, met and merged and created something new. You pause near where Congo Square once pulsed with life, now called Louis Armstrong Park. The ground here remembers. Every Sunday for decades, this earth absorbed the stamp of feet, the slap of palms on stretched hide, the call and response that would become the backbone of American music. You take a deep breath, feeling your shoulders drop as the city's rhythm finds you. These gatherings weren't just permitted, they became essential to the city's soul. Here, African rhythms met European instruments, and jazz began its long, beautiful birth. The music that emerged from these meetings changed everything. It taught instruments to talk to each other in new ways, the trumpet learning to cry and laugh in the same breath, the clarinet discovering it could bend notes like the human voice, the piano finding rhythms in its left hand that Europe never imagined. Jazz wasn't invented. It grew here like the live oaks, roots deep and branches spreading wide, each musician adding another ring to its trunk. The warm air moves across your skin like a blessing, carrying distant notes from a saxophone somewhere in the quarter. The sound is soft, almost like breathing, and you find your own breath slowing to match its gentle rhythm. As you continue walking, the worn brick beneath your feet tells its own story, smooth in the center where countless footsteps have passed, rough at the edges where time has left its mark. You notice how the city's faiths layer upon each other like sediment. Cathedral bells ring the hours, while altars to the Loire stand in shop windows. Catholicism arrived with the French, but it learned to make room for other beliefs. The enslaved brought their own understanding of the sacred, and when forbidden to practice openly, they found ways to hide their deities behind saints' faces. Saint Peter held Papa Legba's keys. Saint Patrick covered Dambala's serpent wisdom, and the Virgin Mary sheltered Erzuli's love and sorrow. This mingling created something unique, a spiritual landscape where a single ceremony might honor multiple traditions without conflict. You pass a shop window where candles flicker behind glass, their light soft as whispers. The smoke from sage and sweetgrass mingles with incense, and prayers rise in French, Spanish, Creole, and languages whose names were taken but whose sounds survived. The humid air holds these scents close, wrapping them around you like an ancient shawl. The food here tells the same story of convergence. In the warmth drifting from restaurant kitchens, you smell the holy trinity of Creole cooking: onion, celery, and bell pepper, a foundation that came from French mirepoix, but adapted to what grew in Louisiana soil. The roux darkening in cast-iron pans carries French technique, transformed by African patience and Spanish spice. Every dish is a history lesson, every meal a story of survival and adaptation. The rice that forms the bed for so many dishes came with the knowledge of those who knew how to grow it in West Africa's river deltas. The spices that warm jambalaya traveled from the Caribbean through Spanish trade routes. Even the beignets dusting the night air with powdered sugar descended from French pastries, but became something entirely their own. You breathe in these mingled aromas, feeling them settle into your memory like old friends. Your footsteps slow as you notice a small courtyard where banana trees rustle in the barely moving air. The sound is like whispered history, each broad leaf holding stories of the Caribbean trade that brought these plants here. You pause, letting the gentle rustling wash over you, feeling the night's warmth ease the tension from your shoulders. As you walk, you begin to understand that Creole itself, the word, the culture, the people, means born here but made from elsewhere. It's a term that holds multitudes: French Creoles, Spanish Creoles, Creoles of color, who built much of what makes this city beautiful. The Creole cottages you pass, with their floor-to-ceiling windows and doors that open directly onto the street, were designed by free people of color who understood how to build for this climate, this light, this way of living where inside and outside refuse sharp boundaries. The parades that wind through these streets carry all these histories forward. Second lines began as funeral processions, but they transformed death into celebration. The brass bands that led them learned their instruments from European tradition, but play them with African joy and Spanish passion. When you see a second line passing, and you might any Sunday, you're watching centuries of culture dancing together. Umbrellas spinning like prayers made visible. The humid night air moves through the streets like a living thing, soft and encompassing. You feel it brush against your arms, your face, carrying with it the faint echo of a trumpet from blocks away. The sound is gentle, almost lullaby-like in its distance. The city's relationship with water shaped everything else. The Mississippi brought commerce and culture, but it also brought danger. Learning to live here meant learning to live with water. Not just the river, but the rain that falls in sheets, the humidity that makes the air thick enough to swim through, the lakes and bayous that refuse to acknowledge where land should properly begin. This negotiation with water created a particular kind of resilience. Buildings learned to stand on piers, to let water pass beneath rather than fight against it. People learned to celebrate between floods, to rebuild after storms, to find joy in the spaces between disasters. The levees that hold the river back are both protection and reminder. This city exists because its people will it to, daily. You find yourself moving more slowly now, the night's warmth and the city's stories settling into your bones. The distant music grows slightly clearer, perhaps a late-night brass band warming up, or a piano rolling through scales in preparation for a set. The sound is inviting but unhurried, like a friend waving from a doorway, patient and welcoming. As you approach the edge of the quarter, where Frenchman Street begins its gentle curve, the music ahead pulls at you softly. You can hear it more clearly now. A bass line walking through the night air. A brush on snare keeping time like a heartbeat. A saxophone testing a phrase that rises and falls like breathing. The street opens before you, glowing amber under the old street lamps. The sound grows warmer, more inviting. But there's no rush. You pause at the corner, feeling the humid air wrap around you like a comfortable blanket. Your breath has found the rhythm of the city now. Slow, deep, patient. The music drifts toward you like a gentle invitation, mixing with the rustle of banana leaves, the distant whisper of the river, the soft conversations spilling from doorways. You stand here, between the history you've just walked through and the music waiting ahead, feeling the city hold you in its timeless embrace. Your shoulders have dropped, your pace has slowed, and you find yourself ready, whenever you choose, to discover what stories the night still holds, what melodies wait just around the corner, patient as the river itself. The night draws you deeper into the quarter, where Royal Street stretches before you like a gallery without walls. Your footsteps find their own quiet rhythm against the worn flagstones, each step releasing the day's warmth still held in the old brick. Above, wrought iron balconies cascade with jasmine and sweet olive, their perfume mixing with the lingering scent of pralines from a shop whose windows have gone dark for the evening. A soft glow spills from an art gallery, its door propped open with a bronze sculpture of a jazz musician frozen mid-note. Inside, paintings seem to breathe in the lamplight, scenes of second lines and cypress swamps, portraits whose eyes follow the movement of shadows. The gallery keeper sits in a velvet chair, fanning herself slowly with a palmetto fan, her movements as measured as the tick of the grandfather clock in the corner. You drift past, drawn by the sound of strings being tuned. 3 musicians have claimed a doorway alcove, their instrument cases open at their feet like offerings. The guitarist's fingers find their positions with practiced ease. The bassist leans into his instrument as if sharing a secret, and the violinist raises her bow with the patience of someone preparing to paint. When they begin, the music doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives, gentle as evening settling over water. The melody they weave is something between classical and jazz, a conversation where each instrument takes turns leading and following. Notes rise and fall like breath, like the slow sway of moss in a breeze you cannot feel, but somehow sense. Your own breathing deepens, matching the unhurried tempo. A couple pauses to listen, their hands finding each other without thought. An elderly man in a linen suit nods his head in time, his cane tapping a soft counterpoint against the sidewalk. The music carries you forward, past windows where crystal chandeliers throw prisms against exposed brick walls, past iron gates that guard hidden courtyards where fountains whisper to themselves. The air moves differently here, stirred by the passage of a horse-drawn carriage, its lanterns swaying like fireflies caught in amber. The driver tips his hat as he passes, the clip-clop of hooves adding percussion to the night's symphony. Your shoulders drop. Tension you didn't know you carried, releasing into the humid air. Turning onto Dauphine Street, the atmosphere shifts like a change in musical key. Here, the buildings press closer, their shutters thrown open to release threads of conversation and laughter. A woman waters plants on her balcony, the droplets catching streetlight as they fall. The scent of night-blooming cereus mingles with coffee brewing somewhere unseen, and you realize the city never truly sleeps. It simply shifts into a quieter register. A door opens ahead, releasing a warm rush of sound. Inside, you glimpse a small crowd gathered around a piano, their faces golden in the candlelight. The pianist's hands move like water over the keys, playing something that sounds both ancient and newly born. The door swings closed again, but the music follows you, muffled now, but persistent, like a memory you carry in your chest. You pause at the corner, letting the various rhythms of the night settle through you. The air is thick but kind against your skin, each breath bringing the mingled scents of the quarter, old wood, night flowers, the faint sweetness of spilled wine evaporating from cobblestones. Frenchman Street announces itself gradually. First a distant horn, then the pulse of a bass line threading through the air. The street unfolds before you, each doorway a portal to a different sonic world. Through one, a brass band holds court, their instruments gleaming like captured sunlight. Through another, a lone guitarist picks out a blues so tender it could be a lullaby. The sounds don't compete. They layer upon each other, like watercolors bleeding into wet paper. The energy here is softer than you expected, mellowed by the late hour. Street musicians play with eyes half closed, their melodies drifting rather than demanding. A saxophonist leans against a lamppost, his notes spiraling upward like lazy smoke. Between songs, he simply breathes, and you find yourself breathing with him. your chest rising and falling in the same patient rhythm. You choose a door at random, or perhaps it chooses you. Inside, the club is intimate. Walls lined with photographs of musicians who've graced this small stage over decades. The air is close but not oppressive, sweetened by the lingering smoke of blown-out candles and the faint vanilla of old wood. Tables cluster near the stage, where a quartet prepares. Saxophone, trumpet, drums, and an upright bass that seems to have grown from the floorboards themselves. The bartender moves with liquid grace, pouring drinks without looking, his attention on the stage. Ice clinks against glass with a sound like wind chimes. Someone orders a sazerac, and you watch the ritual of its making. The rinse of absinthe, the twist of lemon peel. Each gesture deliberate and calming. When the music begins, it doesn't explode. It unfurls. The bass walks first, establishing a heartbeat slower than your own, inviting your pulse to follow. The drums join with brushes, painting rhythm rather than pounding it. The trumpet enters like a question, and the saxophone answers with a phrase that curves through the air. You find a seat near the back, where you can feel the music as much as hear it. The vibrations travel through the wooden floor, up through your chair, settling into your bones with a gentle insistence. Around you, others sway gently, some with eyes closed, some watching the musicians with the attention of witnessing something sacred. The saxophone takes a solo, notes spiraling upward, then cascading down in runs that seem to defy breath. When the player finally steps back, passing the spotlight to the trumpet, the transition feels like watching one wave hand off to the next. Time becomes elastic in this space. Songs blend into each other without clear borders, the musicians reading each other's intentions through glances and subtle nods. Between sets, you step outside for air. The night has deepened, the sky now fully dark save for the amber glow of streetlights. The air outside feels fresh after the close warmth of the club, though it still carries that distinctive weight, the humidity that makes everything in New Orleans move a little slower, think a little deeper. Your pace naturally slows to match. You wander further, past a fortune teller whose cards lie spread on a velvet cloth, past a late-night art market where paintings lean against brick walls like windows into dreams. The crowds have thinned, leaving more space between the sounds. Music from various venues mingles in the street, jazz from one door, funk from another, a gospel singer's pure tone from a third. On a quieter corner, a young man plays saxophone alone, his case open but not asking, simply offering. His melody is simple, almost meditation-like, notes held long enough to feel like breathing. You pause, letting the sound wash over you, feeling how it seems to slow your pulse, to invite a deeper breath. The stone of the cathedral wall behind him is cool when you lean against it, its surface worn smooth by centuries of shoulders seeking rest. When you drop $1 in his case, he nods without breaking the phrase, incorporating your movement into his rhythm. The note he's holding seems to extend forever, a single tone that could be the city's own exhalation. Your breathing has found his tempo now, slow and deep, each breath drawing in the night's accumulated sweetness. The streets begin to lead you back toward the river, the music gradually softening behind you. You pass through Jackson Square, where the cathedral stands pale and ethereal in the moonlight, its spires reaching toward stars obscured by the gentle haze. The iron fence around the square throws shadows like musical notation across the path. Your steps slow naturally, the night's journey settling into your muscles with a pleasant weight. The sounds of Frenchman Street have become distant now, transformed into something like memory, even as they continue somewhere behind you. The flagstones beneath your feet begin to slope gently downward, and the air changes, cooler now, carrying something ancient and patient. A final trumpet note drifts after you, so faint it could be real or imagined. A single, sustained tone that seems to hang in the air before dissolving like sugar in warm water. It fades so gradually, you cannot mark the moment it becomes silence. The city's music continues, will always continue. But for now, you're moving toward a different rhythm. Ahead, you can sense the river waiting, its presence like a deep bass note too low to hear but felt in your chest. The last sounds of the quarter fade into whispers, then into the rustle of leaves stirring in river breeze. Each step takes you closer to where the ancient rhythm of the Mississippi begins to call, promising the deeper quiet that waits along its banks. The river calls you back, its voice low and constant beneath the fading symphony of the quarter. You follow the pull of water and moonlight, leaving behind the warm press of music-filled rooms, the clink of glasses, the murmur of late-night conversations that drift through doorways like smoke. Your footsteps carry you down quiet streets, where the sounds grow softer with each block. A trumpet's last note hanging in the air, then dissolving. A door closing somewhere with a gentle click. The distant roll of carriage wheels on cobblestones growing fainter, until only your own movement remains. The levee rises before you, a gentle slope of grass that leads to the water's edge. Each step up feels like ascending into a different realm, one where the city's energy transforms into something quieter, more eternal. At the crest, the Mississippi spreads before you, vast and unhurried, its surface holding the moon's reflection in ripples of silver light that stretch from bank to bank. The air here moves differently, cleaner, cooler, touched by the river's own breath. You can taste the faint mineral sweetness of it, feel how it moves across your skin like silk drawn slowly through fingers. It carries scents from far upstream, wet earth, green growing things, the faintest hint of rain that fell on distant fields. The city's warmth still clings to your clothes, but the river air begins to lift it away, layer by patient layer, until you feel lighter, unburdened. You find a place to sit where the grass meets the water's edge, where the earth has been worn smooth by countless others who have sought this same solace. The ground beneath you is still warm from the day's sun, but cooling now, releasing its heat in gentle waves that rise and dissipate into the night. You settle into this spot as if it has been waiting for you, as if the river has saved this particular view, this particular moment, just for your arrival. Your hands find the grass beside you, feeling its texture, soft but resilient, slightly damp with evening dew. You lean back slowly, vertebra by vertebra, until you're lying on the earth, the sky opening above you like a vast, star-pricked canvas. The transition feels natural, inevitable, as if gravity itself has become gentler here by the water. Behind you, New Orleans continues its nocturnal dance, but the sounds reach you differently now, softened, filtered through distance and darkness, until they become something else entirely. The brass notes that were sharp and bright on Frenchman Street arrive as whispers, rounded and mellowed by their journey through the humid air. A saxophone's cry becomes a sigh. A drum's insistence becomes a heartbeat, steady and reassuring. Even the occasional car horn loses its urgency, becoming just another note in the city's lullaby. The river itself makes music of a different kind. Listen closely, and you can hear the subtle variations in its flow, the gentle lap against the bank, each small wave arriving with its own timing, its own particular sound. Deeper currents move beneath the surface with ancient purpose, creating a low, almost inaudible hum that you feel more than hear. Occasionally, something unseen breaks through and returns to the depths with a soft splash that sends concentric circles spreading outward, catching moonlight as they expand and fade. You breathe deeply, matching your rhythm to the water's patient pulse. In through your nose, the air cool and sweet. Hold for a moment, feeling your chest rise, your ribs expand. Out through your mouth, releasing not just breath, but the accumulated tension of the day. Again. The river air fills spaces you didn't know were empty, reaches corners of your lungs that have been waiting for exactly this kind of deep, unhurried breathing. A barge passes in the distance, its lights creating a moving constellation against the darkness. The engine's rumble reaches you not as noise, but as vibration, traveling through the earth and into your body, becoming part of your own rhythm. You feel it in your chest, in the bones of your spine, pressed against the grass. The boat's wake arrives moments later, small waves that kiss the shore with increasing tenderness. First one, then another, each gentler than the last until they fade back into stillness. The scent of night-blooming jasmine drifts from somewhere nearby, mixing with the river's own perfume, that particular blend of water and earth and time. Beneath it, you catch the faint memory of chicory coffee that seems to permeate every corner of this city, even here, where the urban gives way to the eternal. There's something green and alive in the air too. Speaking of delta mud and growing things, of roots reaching deep and leaves opening to darkness. Your body begins to release the evening's accumulated energy, muscle by muscle, breath by breath. Your shoulders, which have carried you through the crowded streets, through doorways and dance floors, finally let go of their vigilance. They sink into the earth, finding support in its solid presence. Your jaw, which has smiled and spoken and tasted the city's flavors, softens and releases. Even your feet, still warm in their shoes from all that walking, all that standing, begin to relax, each small muscle letting go of its work. The moon has risen higher now, its light creating a pathway across the river that seems to lead everywhere and nowhere at once. You watch this silver road shimmer and shift with each small movement of the water, never quite the same from one moment to the next. yet always beautiful, always inviting. Sometimes the light scatters into 1,000 fragments like scattered coins. Sometimes it gathers into a single bright line that points toward the horizon, where the river bends out of sight. A night bird calls from somewhere in the darkness, perhaps a night heron, its voice neither urgent nor alarming, just a gentle reminder that life continues its quiet business, even as the city rests. The call is answered from farther away, then again from another direction, creating a loose network of communication that floats above the water like an invisible web of sound. Between their calls, silence deepens, becomes something tangible, something that holds you as surely as the earth beneath you. The temperature has found its perfect balance now, warm enough that you need no covering, cool enough that your skin feels blessed by the slightest movement of air. Every small breeze that rises from the river carries away a little more of the day's weight, a little more of the world's insistence. You are becoming lighter with each passing moment, more connected to this place, this time, this gentle unwinding of the night. In the distance, a church bell tolls the hour, its bronze voice carrying across rooftops and through streets to reach you here by the water. The sound is both ancient and immediate, marking time while somehow existing outside of it. Each note hangs in the air for a long moment before dissolving, making space for the next, creating a meditation in metal and air. You count them without meaning to, each toll a gentle pull toward rest. The stars above are softer here than in darker places, gentled by the city's glow, but they are present nonetheless. Patient points of light that have watched this river flow for longer than the city has stood, longer than memory reaches. They offer no judgment, no urgency, only their quiet presence, their steady light that has traveled impossible distances to rest gently on your upturned face. Between them, the darkness is not empty, but full of possibility, full of peace. The river continues its work, carrying everything downstream. Ships and dreams, history and hope, the detritus of days and the seeds of tomorrows. It asks nothing of you except your presence, your willingness to lie here and be still, to let its ancient rhythm become your own. In this generosity, in this endless giving and taking away, the Mississippi offers what the music offered earlier, a chance to be part of something larger, something that flows beyond the boundaries of your single life. Your breathing has found its own river now, flowing in and out with the same patient constancy as the water beside you. Each exhale releases a little more, tension from your temples, tightness from your chest, the last echoes of the city's bright energy. Each inhale brings the river closer, its coolness, its calm, its promise of continued flow. As the night deepens around you, as the city's voices grow quieter and the river's voice grows clearer, you feel yourself entering that space between waking and sleeping, between consciousness and dream. The world becomes softer at its edges, its demands less insistent, its beauty more profound. You are here, by the water, in New Orleans, at the end of a night that has filled you with music and movement, and now, at last, with this deep and abiding peace. Somewhere, A boat's horn sounds, not harsh but hollow, like a conch shell calling through fog. The sound rolls across the water and fades, leaving ripples of silence in its wake. The river accepts this sound as it accepts all things, folding it into its flow, carrying it onward. Tomorrow, perhaps, you'll wake to find the city transformed by morning light, the river wearing different colors, new stories beginning. But that tomorrow feels distant now, separated from this moment by the vast, gentle territory of sleep that stretches before you like the river itself, wide, welcoming, endless.